So I'm going to review Monkey Man by Dev Patel. Monkey Man is Dev Patel's directorial debut, and many people have called it the Indian John Wick. Well, maybe some racist people have called it the Indian John Wick, and in fact, maybe even he called it the Indian John Wick. Let me fact check that for a second.
I've heard a lot of people calling this like the South Asian John Wick. How do you feel about that? Is that similar, or is that a little bit like off about what the movie is?
I think it's kind of a weird cocktail of all these things that I've kind of injected into this film, and I think it's the only real touch point John Wick is for this kind of film. You see a man in a suit,
right?
And I'm like, you got to watch some Korean movies.
Upon a fact check, it seems like everyone's called it the Indian John Wick, so racism all around, I guess. But here's the thing, it's not the Indian John Wick at all. Now let me start by saying I love Dev Patel. I think he's a really brilliant actor, very emotive with his eyes. So already this film has an advantage because him being a brilliant actor eclipses Keanu's inability to act. Now I love Keanu Reeves and everyone loves Keanu Reeves, but let's face it, as an actor, he can be slightly underwhelming, but he's great at what he does, and he works perfectly for John Wick. But Dev Patel here is a different level of acting, and because of that, I feel the film has a lot more depth to it than a John Wick film. In fact, the film doesn't actually have much action to it at all. The last third of the film, maybe even less than that, is where all the action is contained. Now, with this being Dev Patel's directorial debut, there are some directorial issues that I have with the film. Having said that, the film is directed masterfully, and this being his directorial debut, I expected a lot more mistakes, but ultimately he really gets a thumbs up for me for brilliant direction. So to underline everything again, if you're expecting an Indian John Wick, for me this is not an Indian John Wick at all. This actually plays more like Indian Kill Bill or Indian Blue Eye Samurai. It's a revenge story about a young man who's trying to get revenge for somebody who murdered his mother. Now, typically, I find that revenge stories are quite just boring, really, if I'm being honest with you. Reason being, the ending is always the same. It's always one person, specifically a guy, who's killed someone's mother or girlfriend or wife in the past, and then the person will then go and exact revenge. And we have to sit down for 2 hours knowing that he's going to go and or her is going to go and exact revenge. It's pretty obvious where the film's going to end. And for me, that is a bit of an issue with this film as well. But I do feel like there's a lot more weight to this film than a lot of films I've seen recently that have a revenge story based around them. But I think what this film has going for it more than any other revenge film is that a bulk of the film plays itself off as a drama. And as I said before, Dev Patel is a brilliant actor, and he has done some amazing films with some incredible directors over the years. In terms of style, if I had to compare this film to any other film that Dev Patel has worked on with any other director, I would say this is closer to Slumdog Millionaire than anything else. And the reason I say that is not because it's also based in India. It's because Danny Boyle is an exceptional and sometimes underrated director. This film really comes across as a Danny Boyle film. Now, by that I mean there's a lot of imagery that is used to underplay things like voiceovers, music, flashbacks. Very Danny Boyle-like. The camera's consistently moving, the camera's consistently flashing. It's very, very Danny Boyle. And believe me, that is a huge compliment. And the soundtrack is booming. It's really in your face. It's really, really vibrant. So far, I've kind of just praised the film. What are the bad things in this film? Now, there are some directorial issues with the film, as I mentioned before. And this is purely because this is Dev Patel's directorial debut. But there are some things that kind of irked me. For example, the character has a pseudonym or a fake name that he gives to another character in the film, and that's done really well. It's really kind of portrayed on screen in a really eloquent fashion. And it's done by the character saying a name to the other character, and then as the character walks away, we kind of tilt down with a really controlled shot to some tins on the side of a shelf that have this fake name on it. And I thought that's a really clever way to introduce a character and a really clever way to have a character think of a fake name. And the way it's presented as well, brilliant. Then in the scene after, we have the same tin in the foreground of an end of a scene. And I'm like, well, you did that already. And it appears a few times throughout the film, this tin. And I'm like, why is this tin appearing there? I get the character's name. I don't know if there's any sort of significance to it beyond the fact that we revealed the name like that. I don't really know, but it felt like I'd done this clever thing. Now I'm going to do it again. It just felt like you're hitting someone over the head with information that you don't need to do. You've done a really clever thing. Let's move on. The film also lacks a little bit of humor. There are some moments where you will laugh. There are some moments where jokes are thrown out and they don't land. In fact, I'd say there's a lot more moments where jokes are thrown out and they don't land at all. This character's name is Bobby. I'm not giving anything away by saying that. And Bobby has a little sidekick, the character that appears throughout the beginning of the film and throughout the film in general. Doesn't need to be there. He's there for some sort of comic relief. He's not funny. He doesn't need to be there at all. But by doing that, by having these little moments where we let go of this dramatic tension, this melodrama, because it's a very melodramatic story, it does allow us to breathe a little bit. And I feel this is the problem with a lot of films. They don't have that release of tension, and they come across as really melodramatic. In fact, I would say the first John Wick lacks humor completely. There's a few bits here and there, but really it takes itself a little bit too seriously. So essentially what I'm saying is the jokes don't land, but the fact they attempt them and they are lightly amusing kind of lightens the tone, which this film definitely needed, because believe me, it's very melodramatic. Also, another thing that really irked me with this film was there's a lot of cut to blacks, which is a convention used a lot by Quentin Tarantino, and he does it really well. It's very subtle when he uses it. This film has a cut to black maybe 8 times, which that's far too many. And there's consistently flashbacks harking back to when he was young, which is kind of the nebulous of the story, but there's way too many flashbacks. And I think about an hour in, we finally get the story of why this flashback exists. But then past that, the flashbacks appear again and again and again. And I just think to myself, this is another trait of a first-time director that is a bit student filmy, but he gets away with it. He does get away with it. And the film, as I said, is put together very masterfully, and the drama kind of offsets the action in that sense. So the flashbacks are justified in a way, but I really think the film could have done with, 20% less flashbacks. So the film was meant to go straight into streaming services, and Jordan Peele, the wonderful director of Get Out, I mean, I'm not a huge Jordan Peele fan, but his importance cannot be played down in terms of this film. Jordan Peele came out of the woodwork and said this film should be in cinemas. So the film kind of nearly just didn't exist, in my opinion, because any film that goes straight to streaming nowadays, it's just lost amongst other films. And this is a huge problem, especially for a film like this, which is definitely a cinema film. And it's definitely a film that is better than just a streaming service release. In fact, a streaming service release should be reserved for films like Rebel Moon. Yes, that was a little dig. So to surmise, this film is definitely not an Indian John Wick. It's more like Slumdog Millionaire if Kill Bill was its child. It's kind of a mishmash of lots of drama, lots of melodrama, and a little bit of action. But I haven't got a problem with that, because I actually think the first John Wick is good, but I do think it suffers from a lack of drama and too much action. So for me, I actually prefer this film to the first John Wick. I actually prefer this film to a lot of the John Wicks. I don't actually like John Wick that much, I think. I'm going to go ahead and give this film a 7 out of 10. It really hits the spot. If you're looking for something with drama and pathos and melodrama and a little bit of action, this is definitely the film for you. It's a wonderful directorial debut from Dev Patel. He really tries a lot of things here that mainly work, to be honest with you. Some of the things that don't work are not offensive whatsoever, apart from the things I mentioned, but really they don't. I'm just being a anal filmmaker here. Honestly, if you've not seen the film, get out there, watch it. If you have seen the film, let me know in the comments what you think about the film. Do you think it's a 7 out of 10? Just give me a number in the comments. Just a number. That's all I want. If you have a critique, give me that as well, but give me a number. Right, that's it. That's it for this film review. As always, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. That's a really important one. Hit the notification button. Like the video. Why not? I mean, I've been really inoffensive. I haven't said anything bad to you, have I? So why don't you just like the video? And I'm going to put my finger right here. I might put it here or there. Doesn't really matter. Something's going to be here or there, and it's going to be another video. Why not stay on? Watch more videos from the channel. I do reviews, I do film analysis, I do film essays, I talk about the state of current modern film. I also talk about foreign films. I talk about film just non-stop. That's all I do. Honestly, that's all I do. So, if you love film, you should subscribe and you should like. And until we speak again, big love.